everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. This fun waterfall scene that kind of looks like we're looking through a window at it or something. So we do a lot of easy stuff with our shapes and then a lot of fun texturizing to make all of our highlights and shadows and stuff. So this is a super straightforward, beginner-friendly tutorial. If you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that is something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also post extra tutorials over on Patreon. I have that linked in the description below if you want to check that out. But before we get started, the only thing that you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just open up the file that downloads on your iPad, and it will automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. You don't need any special brushes. All of the brushes that we use are standard Procreate brushes. And then I will also post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we will get started. Okay, so this is the color palette that we will be using today. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. The first thing that we will do is create our background and the circle that we will draw everything on. So for our background, let's just first set our background color. So we will do that by going to our layer menu, finding this background color layer, clicking on that to open up our color selector here and select the first color on the first row of the color palette. Then we'll just click our layer button to go back out so that we don't change that again. And then we will just make sure we're on layer 1. We'll grab our second color on the top row. This one's a little bit lighter, so it's going to create a little light circular glow in the middle behind our circle that we draw everything on. So again, second color on the top row, we will be on the monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. Let's just go ahead and set that to 100%. And we'll just draw a nice circle in the center. So just all the way around, good size circle, hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth, and then touch your finger to the screen to make it a perfect circle. Set the sides kind of wherever, pretty good size, and then go ahead and fill that in. Then we will grab our arrow tool, and then you can resize it here if you need to on uniform. I want just a little bit of space on the edges all the way around, so maybe about like this. So pretty good size. And then let's go ahead and make sure that snapping is turned on in the bottom left. And we will just drag it around until it snaps into the center of the screen here where we see both yellow lines. Click our arrow tool to turn that off. And then to get it to blur with our previous background color, we will go to our wand icon, click Gaussian blur, and drag this up a good amount to 50% or so. Okay, click our wand tool to turn that off. Then that's just for our background. So now we will draw the actual circle that our picture is going to be within. And to do that, we will go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above this layer, grab our third color on the top row of the color palette, and our same monoline brush at 100%, and we will draw another circle. So another circular shape, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen, kind of set the size a good size again, and then go ahead and fill that in. Then again, arrow tool, and now we can resize it on uniform if we need to, and kind of move it around and center it again. So center it again on our center yellow lines, and again, I'm just having a good amount of space on each side, but our circle, we want to be a pretty big size so that we can have a nice big picture inside. So maybe about right here is good so we can see the glow around it and our background color all the way around. Okay, now to draw everything within our circle, we are going to pretty much set everything to a clipping mask. So that lets it be on its own layer, but still we only color within our shape that we have laid down. So for example, we will first just draw the cliffs that our waterfalls are on. So to do that, we will go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above the circle layer that we're on right now. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. And then let's go ahead and grab our first color on the second row of the color palette now. Same monoline brush at 100%. And I'm just going to start on the left side outside of my circle here, towards the top, maybe like a third of the way down. So a good amount above halfway here. And we're just going to create kind of like a wavy line. It's going to kind of dip down in the middle and then go back up on the right side. So like this is probably where our waterfall will be, one of them, and then a smaller one on the left side. So one is going to be kind of in the middle. So we want it to dip down there. So I might kind of redo it and just kind of have it dip down a little bit better. There we go. Something like that. I might have it go up a little higher on the left side too, so it's a little more even. So something kind of like that. And then again, we'll have another waterfall to the left. So I might even grab my arrow tool and move this over to the right just a teeny tiny bit so that our main waterfall area here is a little bit further to the right side, just barely. So maybe about like that. So make sure it's going off on each edge off of our circle, and then just make sure it goes off the screen entirely. So draw it all the way past the edge of our canvas on both sides so that we can fill in below it. And then as you can see, it only fills in within our circle. So if there's any other little sections that you need to fill in, go ahead and do so. If you need to smooth this out or change the shape at the top at all, go ahead and do that as well. But mine, it looks pretty good there. You can use your eraser too if necessary. I also have that set to the monoline brush at like 60 to 70% or whatever works for you if you need to do any erasing there. But now that our cliff side's laid out, we are going to add like the highlight to the top part of the cliff and then the highlight to the tops of some other smaller cliffs on the side of our whole kind of cliff face here. Okay, so to add the tops of our cliff, we are going to go to our layer menu, add another new layer, click on it and set it to a clipping mask. Grab the second color on the second row, the next one in line, same monoline brush, still at 100% for now. And let's see, I'm just going to kind of follow the same shape on the top of my cliff here to make like a highlight. So I'm just going to start on the right side outside of my canvas, kind of go in, just kind of follow the top line as best as I can, going kind of slow, but you can kind of speed it up too to get a nice smoother line. Then I'm just going to kind of thicken it. So kind of just in either direction, either above or below. We just want to kind of cover this whole top line, still following that same shape. Kind of smooth it out just so we get kind of a thicker section of this lighter color at the top, all the way across to kind of be like the highlight on the top of our cliff face. So it can be a little bit rough too because it is a rock formation, so it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. So that is the top of the cliff. Then we're going to make some smaller kind of little cliff faces as well. So to do that, we're going to use the same color, same brush. We're just going to lower the size of it. So let's go down to like 30% on our monoline brush here. And we'll just make some of these to help us get some nice like horizontal cliff faces without having to do the whole like draw a line, hold down, touch your finger to the screen to make it perfectly horizontal thing that we usually do because we want them to be a little less perfect. I am going to turn on the 2D grid so that we can just see a better visualization of like vertical and horizontal lines as we're drawing. So this will come in handy when we draw the cliff faces right now and also when we draw like the texture and shadows and everything. So we'll just go to our gear icon under canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide. It should automatically set itself to the 2D grade. That's what we want. As long as you like the way the lines look and everything, you can just leave it as is. But if you need to make any adjustments, just click edit drawing guide. And then you can like change the opacity if it's too bright or too dark, or if you want to change the thickness of the lines or something, kind of whatever you need to do. But you don't need to mess with the grid size necessarily. So then go ahead and click done. And then again, we're still on our layer with our thick stripe at the top. Same monoline brush, same color, 30% for our size now. And we're just going to make these cliff faces. So I'm just going to start kind of on the right side here, a little ways from the top. And I'm just going to make like a horizontalish line. But again, not holding it down or anything, just kind of freehanding it. So to the right of where my waterfall will be. And then just kind of make a little bit of a bumpier top here, like so. So that just kind of helps us stay kind of nice and horizontal here. Get a nice kind of cliff face there. We're kind of to the right of where the waterfall will be, but if you go under where the waterfall will be, that's okay too. It can cover up our cliffside. That's totally fine. I'm going to go down a little bit and just make another kind of small one here, like so. Okay, then we'll go to the left side. I will kind of skip the middle for the most part. We'll go to the left side here, make another one kind of towards the middle. So again, real bumpy kind of wavy lines, nice and thin. Okay, then maybe I'll go down a little further and I'll have one that goes off the edge over here. And then I'll go down a little bit maybe and have one kind of in the middle, like so. So we don't want to go down too far because obviously our cliffs aren't going to be down here. We're going to have like a little bit of water showing down here. So we only want them to be maybe halfway or above on our cliff face here. So I just did the 5 and I will just leave it at that. Okay. Then we are going to go ahead and start adding texture to all of this. So we're going to use a special brush to add texture to everything today. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by adding texture to these lines that we just created. So the lighter lines that make the tops of all of our cliff faces. So on our layer menu, on this layer, click on it and turn on alpha lock. So we only draw within this shape now. So we can't layer clipping mask. I can't add another layer and set it to a clipping mask. It will still clip to our circle shape. But if we only want to draw within these shapes that we just laid down, we just set it to alpha lock and we'll just draw on the same layer. So we will go to our color palette. We will select the 3rd color on the 2nd row, the lightest of all of our little blues here. And then for our brush, the texture brush that we're going to use is under the painting category. It is the turpentine brush. We'll set the size pretty low to like maybe 5%. And we are just going to add kind of a highlight with this texture. So I'm just going to go to the top on my big thick line here. I'm going to start just kind of outside at the top and just kind of work my way in to, maybe 1/3 to halfway through, all the way down, and just kind of follow this going in that same motion all the way along this to add some nice texture and a kind of another highlight here. So just all the way down, do that, and then we'll do the same thing with our smaller pieces here. So I'll zoom in and just do the top, again, working like horizontally across the tops of them. If you need to change your brush size at all, go ahead and do so, but I just kind of start on the outside at the top and work my way in so that I only touch like the top half of them. Like so, very simple. Okay, then we're going to do a lot of this on our cliff face. And this is again where our lines will come in handy. So we want to make vertical shadows and highlights all along our main darker teal cliff face here. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu. We will add a new layer right above our main cliff face layer here. So right below the layer that we were just on. So let's add a new layer right in there. It will automatically set itself to a clipping mask since it's in between 2 clipping masks. And we're just going to kind of use a lot of the similar colors. So our first color on the 2nd row was our base color. We'll use our 2nd and 3rd colors as highlight colors, and then our 4th and 5th colors as like shadow colors. So let's just go ahead and start with our 2nd color on the 2nd row. Same turpentine brush now. Let's maybe change the size to like 10%, get it a little bit bigger. And we're just going to kind of pick sections, maybe like more towards the middles of our pieces here. So like, I think I want the edges of each of these to be like darker. So like right where I'm drawing right now, I want that to be darker to create like a shadow. But then on the fronts of them, we want it to be lighter. So I'm going to start just kind of right here around the middle and just kind of draw vertically. Again, just kind of trying to stay like with a line, because that's always kind of hard for me. Sometimes I'll do this without my lines turned on and then I get done and all my lines are kind of crooked. So just kind of very simply add this towards the middle of our pieces here. You can kind of pick up your brush and layer them, drag them as low as you would like. They don't have to go all the way to the bottom every single time though. You can kind of just add some here and there. like so, kind of lightly in some areas. We'll add like a brighter highlight soon. We can even add some just coming off the top here in different sections, kind of wherever. Okay, so something kind of like that to start. Then we'll move to our next color, the lighter one, the third one on the second row. We'll drop our brush size back down to like 5%, and I'm just going to kind of focus on the middle of these sections to just add some brighter highlights there in certain areas. Just to kind of brighten some spots up a little bit more. Again, you don't even have to go like all the way down with it. You can just like highlight towards the middle. Okay, now we'll go in with our darker colors. So we'll start with our fourth color on the second row. We'll increase our brush back up to like 10 again. And we'll just kind of do exactly the same thing, just kind of like a little bit differently. So again, like more so on the edges of our cliff sides. So I'll start kind of right on the edge here. I'll make a nice dark section. I might even like angle the bottom of it a little bit. And it's okay if they overlap a little bit. The colors kind of run together the way that our brush works, and that's kind of nice. So I just am kind of adding this here and there. And then towards the top, again, just kind of randomly wherever it works out for them to add some nice texture just kind of all over. So I might even add some kind of in the open spaces down here. Okay, and then again, we'll go in with our darker color still, the fifth one on the second row. Lower our brush size back down again to 5% and add some kind of thicker or some kind of darker sections just kind of in the middle of all of our shadows here to add some more variation to them. Okay, so that looks pretty good to start. Let's go ahead and maybe just add a little bit more of like maybe our second color on our second row. Same, we'll just stick at 5%, but just kind of maybe to fill in some of the spaces lightly, just to add a little bit more texture here and there next to all of our big sections that we just made. Okay, feel free to go in with any other colors if you want to add more. I might add a little bit more shadows here and there, just kind of blend these out a little bit better even. Otherwise, I think this looks good and we have a nice amount of texture kind of all over. So that is good. Okay, so we're going to do very similar things kind of for the rest of the pieces on our picture. So let's go ahead and add our waterfalls now. So to do that, we're going to go to our layer menu, add a new layer above all of our layers so far. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. And we are going to start with this first color on the last row of our color palette. And we are again going to switch back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab at 30%. And this is what we will use to draw our waterfalls. So let's draw our first main waterfall here. So it's going to start kind of just somewhere towards the middle of the top here. Even if you don't have a big dip like mine, that's okay. Just kind of wherever towards the middle. It can be totally flat, just kind of somewhere to the left of the middle area. I'm going to just kind of start there, draw a nice like kind of straightish line down, smooth that out, and we will go over this with a texture brush anyway, but let's just get a nice kind of smooth line there. I'll just kind of go across here. You can either follow your shape a little bit or just kind of, you know, make it kind of straight across-ish line. And then we'll just kind of curve back down and go back down again. Have it go off the screen at the bottom all the way off our canvas so that we can fill it in. Okay, I'll just kind of smooth this out again. And if you need to make any adjustments, go ahead and do so. Mine's a little thick from left to right, so I am just going to grab my arrow tool on freeform and just kind of skinny it up a little bit here. Like so. But again, smooth anything out that needs to be. We're going to cover pretty much all the edges with either like froth at the top or water spraying on the sides and the bottom. So it doesn't have to be crazy perfect, but just kind of something nice like this. Okay, and then coming off of this one is going to be a small waterfall coming this way. So to do that, it's just going to kind of shoot right off the side here, like it's kind of coming from the back. Then it's just going to kind of curve down. So then let's draw another slightly curved line with it. Maybe let it get thicker at the bottom, just a little bit, like so. And then I will just kind of connect it and fill it in. Okay, then we're going to have a small waterfall coming from this top left area. So again, I didn't even make a dip for this one. It's just going to be pretty small, but it's just going to start a little bit thinner at the top. Kind of just fall down here past some of our cliffs. A little skinnier at the top again. So I'll just go over and make the next one. Have it get a little bit thicker at the bottom. Connect it at the top. And then either connect it at the bottom or have it go down off the canvas so that we can fill it in. Okay, so this is the start of our waterfalls. So now we will make the little bit of water that we see at the bottom. So let's go to our layer menu, add another new layer right above this one, click on it and set it to a clipping mask. We're going to use the same color, same brush, same everything, and I am just going to kind of draw right across the bottom. So I'm just going to start a little ways from the bottom, like maybe right about here, make a little just kind of wavy line going off the left and right side of the canvas so that we can fill in below it. It got a little too like wavy. It doesn't need to be wavy. It can be more flat because it's just a little section of water pooled at the bottom. So maybe something about like that and then fill it in. So I really just have a little sliver down here. You can move it around if you need to. Move it up like a teeny bit, maybe like so. So we want to see a little bit of it there at the bottom, but we don't want it to cover our whole picture and make our waterfalls really short. So maybe something about like this. Okay, now we'll kind of do a similar thing that we did for our cliff sides and stuff. We'll add all of our texture and everything to both of these pieces. So let's just start with the water at the bottom since we're on that layer. We'll click on the layer menu and set it to alpha lock again, so we're only drawing within this shape here. So we will first just kind of draw some shadows in the water. So this first color on the last row is what we used as our base color. We'll switch to the second color on the last row to make a slightly darker just texture all over. So again, with that color selected, we will switch to our turpentine brush under the painting category. Let's set the size to 10%, and we are just going to go back and forth kind of horizontally, kind of all the way through, more so towards the bottom. But just kind of all over real quick just to add a little bit of texture there. Then we'll switch to our darker color, the third one on the bottom row, and then we'll just start from the bottom and we'll work our way in just kind of towards the middle, just so it's a little bit darker at the bottom there. Just a little bit like that, nothing crazy. Then we will grab our lightest color, the fourth one on the bottom row, and we will work this all the way across the top. So where our waterfall and our water at the bottom meet, since we're only on the water layer at the bottom here, once you start drawing, like you'll see it just pops in right over our water layer there, so it doesn't affect our waterfall behind it. So we just kind of want to draw this all across the top here to create a really, really nice like light kind of highlight at the bottom where our water is hitting the cliffs and our waterfall is hitting the water. So a nice kind of light layer there. Okay. Once we have that in place, we're going to drop our brush size a little bit to 5% and just add a few more like horizontal kind of streaks of this lighter color throughout some of the rest of the water. Nothing too dark, so keep it pretty light, like so. So just a few little sections here and there. Okay, then we'll do a very similar thing to our waterfalls now. So we'll go to our waterfall layer, and this time it's a little bit different. We're going to not turn on alpha lock because we do want some water texture on the sides of our waterfalls. We don't want them to be so smooth with our monoline brush that we created. So we're just going to switch to this layer and we're just going to draw directly on top of it. You can add a new layer if you want right on top of it so that we don't affect our previous shapes. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll just do this on a brand new layer right above the waterfalls that we created, so we should still be below our bottom water layer. Okay, so let's first grab our second color on the last row of the color palette, the slightly darker one. We're going to focus this on one side of the waterfalls that will be in shadow. So for our main one here, it's going to be the left side. It's also going to be the left side of this little shooty off piece, and then it's going to be the right side of this one since this one's on the inside. We'll say that this part is in shadow. So let's just start on the right one here with this slightly darker color, and we're just going to follow the entire right side of our waterfall with this brush. We're still at 5%, so we're going to create like a nice shadow here with this texture, but then also just letting it kind of run off the edge here, kind of pushing pretty hard there to create like a nice texture on the edge where the edge of our water is so that it looks more like free flowing, like water would look. So if you're having a hard time with the brush size, you can go ahead and lower it more if that's helpful to like 3% or something to just kind of focus on the edges like so. Okay, so again, we'll maybe take this like a third to halfway through the waterfall here. Okay, then we'll do the same thing on the next one. I'll go back to 5% and we will focus on the left side of this now. So the left, like again, like third will go over. So we'll go all the way over to like a third of the way through and go all the way down just in vertical strokes. And then when we get to the very edge, we'll kind of push pretty hard there to make some nice kind of textured lines going down the side of our waterfall, like so. Don't worry too much about the tops and what they look like because we're going to cover those in foam. So don't worry about how that looks up there. Okay, then we'll lower our size even a little bit for this far right one. So we'll do 3%. And again, we're going to do this kind of left side. So just right where they meet here, I will start there. Again, cover like the left, maybe like third of this all the way down, just following the shape of it. And then again on the far left side, kind of letting it run outside the edges a little bit for some more texture there. Okay, then again we have another shadow color, so let's grab our third color on the last row and we will add that on the far sides of all these. So on the right one, it'll be on the far right, just add a teeny tiny bit of this darker shadow color there. Teeny tiny bit of it on the far left of our middle section, again just working vertically. And on the far left of this one here, just a tiny little bit there. We will switch back to our second color now real quick. Our second color on the last row, so our slightly darker one, and we'll just add this just a little bit here and there. So I'm still at 3%, just a little bit here and there throughout the rest of our waterfall, just to add some more texture and kind of dimension to it. Again, working like vertically, so just a few little sections. Now we can go back in with our bright color, our fourth color on the last row, and do similarly just on this side that we didn't do in shadow. We'll add this very, very lightly throughout in vertical streaks. If you get any too dark, just go ahead and undo them and try again very lightly. And if you get some even like over the shadow, that's fine too, just to kind of add a little bit more dimension here and there. No biggie. Okay, and then lastly-ish, we are going to grab our main color, the base color that we use, the first one on the last row, and do the other side of our waterfall with our texture. So I'm still at 3%, and I'm just going to focus on the side that I haven't touched yet, and just lightly kind of run down to add a kind of texture to the side there. So cover it a good amount so you don't have any big gaps, or there's not like a big straight line that you can see. So just kind of go over it a few times if necessary. Something like that. Make sure you like the way that that all looks. Go in with any other colors if you need to. I might go in with like my darkest color again. Just here and there, I don't feel like I have very much of it. Or just kind of whatever you think. Maybe you want more of the lighter color. That's fine too. Just whatever works. Okay, next for our waterfalls, we need the frothiness. So it'll be frothy at the top, there will be a couple frothy sections in the middle, and then it'll be frothy and splattery at the bottom. So to do that, we will go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above this one. It'll still be below our bottom water layer at the bottom of our screen, so it should automatically set itself to a clipping mask there. We will be on the fourth color on the last row of the color palette, and we are going to switch our brush to the fresco brush under the painting category. Set our size very, very low to like 3%. And let's just start on our left one here at the top. We are just going to kind of rub this around in kind of circular motions, picking up our brush a few times to get it nice and thick just across the top here so that we get like a kind of frothy little section there like so. No real, no perfectly straight line, just kind of some random blobs. Okay, then we'll go down a little ways and add another section kind of straight across. But again, not like a straight line. I'll just kind of add a few different blobs so that we get kind of a fun shape like this. Again, picking up my brush a few times to make it nice and thick. Then we'll go down maybe closer to the bottom so they're not like perfectly spaced out. So maybe right about here. And I'll do another one. Like so. We'll do the same thing on this middle one. So we'll start by going across the top. Again, making sure to just go over it plenty of times so that we don't see that top line of our waterfall. Then yeah, I might make it like thicker in some areas, like on the bottom, maybe some thicker at the top. So it looks kind of sporadic. Okay, then I'll go down a teeny ways, just maybe right above where it splits off, if that works for you. Otherwise, you can go below where it splits off. But again, we're just going to do the same like 3 on this one as well. The same like, we had 3 on our last one, so we'll have 3 on this one. Okay. Again, I'll go like closer to the bottom this time. Maybe not directly across from this one so it doesn't look like we're doing the exact same pattern. So maybe I'll do like a little bit above it. Again, this is kind of where the lines come in handy. I'm just like one line above where my last one was. So if you're kind of have a line that you're on, you can kind of use that as a guide. But if not, that's okay. We didn't plan for it to be on a line necessarily. Just kind of worked out that way for me. Okay, then for our right one here, we'll just probably do two. So I'll do one kind of up here. And then maybe one a little bit lower. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to have a little frothiness at the bottom of each one as well. So right at the very bottom here, and we are below our water layer, so it's okay to like, you know, be just drawing because it just dips right under that, so which is good. We don't want it to be covering up like the water textures and stuff that we made. So it works out well that it's below it. And we'll go kind of wider on these maybe, so a little bit wider on the sides because they're making like a bigger splash down there. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to have some sprays of water at the bottom as well. So same color, same layer. We're just going to switch our brush to the Flicks brush under the spray painting category. We'll set our size, again, pretty low to like 5%. And just zoom in at the bottoms here and just kind of tap all around where our little frothiness is right at the bottom to create a little spray next to it. So I just kind of tap around. I don't really drag it because then it gets kind of thick and kind of goes all over the place. But you can drag it if that works for you. But I'm just kind of tapping around each of the bottoms of these. Like so. So just a little bit extra down there. Okay. We are getting close to being done already, so we just have the clouds and the sun in the sky to create. So let's first start with just the sky itself. Now that we have this all laid out, we're going to create like a little bit of a gradient where it gets lighter at the top, darker at the bottom. So we are going to go back to our main circle layer here that everything is clipped to, add a layer right above that. So we should be below all of our other layers, all of our other clipping masks, but it should also automatically set itself to a clipping mask. This third color on the top row was the main color that we used. So now we have two darker colors to use and one lighter color to use. So let's just go ahead and start with our next color and line the fourth one on the top row. So this one's just slightly darker than our base color was. We'll switch back to our turpentine brush under the painting category. Let's go ahead and set that back up to 10%. And again, we're going to kind of use our lines as a guide here, so it's going to get a little bit darker at the bottom. So I'm going to start maybe halfway through where my sky is showing here and just kind of follow my kind of horizontal lines to get some nice horizontal streaks all the way to the tops of my waterfall, going off each side, like so. Then we'll grab our next color and line the darkest one, the fifth one on the top row. We'll start kind of towards the bottom where our waterfall is and just kind of work upwards, just maybe about halfway through what we just did. So it's just kind of darker towards the bottom there. Then we'll grab our lighter color, the sixth one on the top row, and we'll start maybe towards the top and add some of this lighter color, again, working horizontally through the sky there, maybe even towards the middle where our first darker color was to kind of blend those together. So we get kind of a nice little gradient there. Okay. Next up is our clouds. So we are first going to draw the base shape and then we'll add the texture and stuff like we've been doing. So first for the base shape, let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above the layer that we just created, still underneath all of our cliffs and everything. Let's grab the next color in line, the 7th one on the top row. So it's the first of these next 3 pink colors. And back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab at 30%. I am just going to start on the right side here and make 2 or 3 bumps for a cloud. So maybe just to the right of the waterfall, kind of right where this cliff is. I'll make maybe just 2 bumps for a cloud there. Connect it back to the beginning, kind of behind my cliff, behind the circle, so it's connected, and then fill that in. So then same thing for this left cloud. We might make it a little bit bigger because our sun's going to be kind of in the top right. So maybe like towards the middle of my waterfall, maybe start. So then maybe I'll make like 1 bump, another one, and maybe 1 more going off the screen, or kind of however yours works. Maybe you ended up with 4 or something. Connect all the way around back to the beginning underneath my cliff and fill that in. Fill in any other gaps you might have. Kind of smooth things out if you need to. Okay, but then those are my clouds. So I might want a little bit more room for my sun. My right one's good, but my left one's a little too far out there. So I'm going to grab my selection tool on freehand. I'm just going to select around this kind of left cloud and move it over. So do that if you need to. If not, if yours is good, go ahead and leave it. But mine, I think, looks a little bit better there. Now we'll go to our layer menu, click on this layer, and turn on alpha lock so we only draw within our cloud shapes. And now we're just going to add some highlights and shadows to them. So let's go ahead and start with our darker color, the next one in line, the 8th one on the top row. Grab our turpentine brush again under the painting category. And let's go ahead and set our size to 10%. And I'm just going to kind of do this throughout all of it to make a nice texture. So just kind of following the bumps of my clouds till we get to the bottom. So just kind of some little curvy motions. So I'm just curving with each curve of the cloud till we get towards like the base where it meets the cliff. So just kind of very lightly there to add some texture. Maybe a little bit more towards the bottoms to make them a little bit darker there. Okay, then we'll grab our lighter color, the 9th one on the top row, lower our size a good amount to like 5%, and we will focus this on the top edges. So just very lightly across the top edges there. And then maybe a couple on the inside. So I might just do like a few little lighter sections, again, kind of following the curves. So then my left side will follow the curves on the top. And then again, yeah, kind of some on the inside, just again, like following some kind of curvy motions, like so. So we get a little bit more dimension there. Okay, I'm also going to now turn off my grade. We just don't need it anymore. So I'm going to go to my gear icon, just click to turn off the drawing guide under canvas there. Whew, that looks a lot better. So now we can add our sun. That's the last step before we just add the little inner shadow. So to add our sun, we'll just add a new layer on our layer menu right above the one that we were on. It will automatically set itself to a clipping mask. And we will grab these orange colors now. So the first of our orange colors, it is the 6th one on the 2nd row. Switch back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. And we'll go ahead and make our sun. So towards the top, middle, or right here, we're going to make a nice good circle shape. Hold it down, touch your finger to the screen, kind of set the size wherever, and then go ahead and fill it in. You can adjust it now if you need to, so with your arrow tool on uniform, you can kind of move it or replace it or resize it. I kind of like mine just like right above the waterfall here with just a little bit of it going outside of my main circle on the top. I think that looks kind of nice. Now we'll just add the texture to it. So on our layer menu, click on this layer, set it to alpha lock. Again, we have these different orange colors now. So let's first start with this second one. It's kind of more of a yellowy orange color. So it's the second one in our group. It is the 7th one on our 2nd row. Switch back to our turpentine brush and we'll probably just leave it on 5% now. And we're just going to start kind of in the middle, or what would be the middle, and just kind of work our way out in like a circular motion you know, till we're maybe covering like 2/3 of it with this more like golden color. It's kind of harder to work in our circular motion, but just do the best you can. Then we'll grab our next color, the dark orange, the 8th one on the second row, and we'll just keep this right towards the edges. Pretty lightly, keeping it pretty smooth and light. And then we have our lightest color, the 9th one on the second row, and we will start that towards the middle again and just kind of add some light there. And I'm not really even just holding it down the whole time, I'm just kind of picking my brush up and making some kind of circular motions with it. Okay, so the circular motions are a little bit harder to do and to make them look nice and smooth. So I kind of like to lay down my colors first like this, and then I go back in with my base color, the original orange color, the 6th one on the second row, and I'll just kind of go back in and just kind of go over everything and just kind of try to smooth it out a little bit wherever it got too crazy. Again, in my circular motions, to kind of just tone some of it down if necessary. And then once you do that, if you want to go back in with some of the lighter or darker, you can. I might want a little bit more darker on the edges to show, or something like that. So feel free to just go in though and kind of mess around and kind of fix things. And then feel free to do that with anything else on your picture as well. If you want more depth in your clouds, go back in and add some more lighter or darker colors there. If you want more depths in your cliffs, I kind of have this blank area on my cliff here, so I might go back to my cliff layer where I made all my highlights and shadows, and then I can go back to this lighter color still on my turpentine brush, and I can go back through and add some of that in. So, feel free to add anything else that you would like to through your water, through your cliffs, through your water at the bottom, anything else. Otherwise, we are going to now move on to our last step, which is the kind of shadow on the inside of our picture to kind of make it look like we're almost looking through a window at it or something. So to do that, we are going to go to our layer menu. We are going to find our main circle layer that we're drawing everything on, this red circle. Click on it and set it to reference. We're going to go to the very top of our layer menu, add a new layer. On our new layer, it's not set to a clipping mask yet, but it will be in a moment. But on our new layer at the top here, with our circle layer down here set to reference, we will grab our last color on the top row of the color palette and drag and drop it on the outside of our circle. So it should fill in this kind of purpley color on the very outside. Okay, we're going to click our wand icon, Gaussian blur. We're going to drag this up a little bit so that this middle edge gets kind of fuzzy. So maybe to let's do 15% or so. Then we'll grab our arrow tool on uniform, and we're going to downsize it a bit and recenter it. So then we kind of see the blur kind of inside our circle a little bit more. Recenter on both of our yellow lines. Okay. Then we're going to go to our layer menu. On this layer, click the N to open up the options here. Slide all the way up to multiply. Then we're going to click on this layer and set it to a clipping mask. And then we get our little shadow on the inside of our picture. So do any more adjusting that you need to. So on this layer, you can grab your arrow tool, you can make it bigger if you want to see less of it. Make sure to recenter it every time. You can make it smaller if you need to see more of it, and make sure to again recenter it. If you kind of how much of it you see, but you think it's a little too dark, that's totally fine. You can just go to your layer menu, click on the M on this layer to open up the options, and you can just drag the opacity down a little bit. So I might drag mine down to 75%, see how that looks. And that is how we get our nice shadow there, and we kind of have the glow from our previous background that we did with this kind of glowy circle down here. You can adjust the size of that if you need to, even to see more of that. You can make it a little bit bigger, recenter it again. But otherwise, that completes our drawing today. So I hope you had fun. I hope you like the way that yours turned out. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more tutorials from me in the future. Again, I offer extra tutorials over on Patreon if you want to check that out. It's linked in the description below. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it, so go ahead and post it and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching!